It is Thursday, February 13th. We are literally like halfway through the month. A lot of things getting ready to start kicking off. But I wanted to talk to you about the Convoy drama that's continuing, right? And I'm hoping to get some of your feedback about this, because this is something that we've talked about in the past, or at least touched on. And I'm curious as to what everyone's opinion on this is. Okay. Before we get into it, don't forget we've got links in the description down below if you're looking for the best factoring around, in my humble opinion. If you need the discount on DAT, if you're looking to get set up with eCarrierCheck, right? Great resource for finding shippers, connecting with carriers. It's a relationship builder is what it is, right? And we preach that kind of on this channel, about networking, building relationships and things. Nate and Jared over there, really super great guys. Also, don't forget to check out our websites, thetruckersresource.com and freightbrokerresources.com. Okay, so getting into it, basically there are hundreds of motor carriers that are vying for their share of a $75,000 bond after the 2023 collapse of Convoy, right? It was a $3.8 billion digital freight broker with now $2.6 million in claims. Okay. Swiss Re, Convoy's bonding company, filed an interpleader case to determine payouts. Small carriers argued the bond is inadequate, leaving them repaying factoring companies, right? If you're on a non-recourse, which really non-recourse, I don't want to get into the whole recourse versus non-recourse thing. Typically, this is not something that's normally needed. Maybe we'll make that a part of a show for another day here. But yeah, small carriers are arguing that the bond is inadequate, leaving them repaying factoring companies, like I mentioned, and pushing for higher bond requirements. Okay. However, Mladen Prisic pointed out in a recent LinkedIn post that raising the bond could harm small brokers and carriers, proposing a risk-based approach instead. This is yet another highly debated topic that exposes the tension between protecting carriers and sustaining small brokers in a market increasingly dominated by big players. So here's my humble opinion on all of this, right? If it's worth anything, my 2 cents. We all pretty much know that on average, 60% of all new brokerages fail, right? And I'm not going to get into the reasons why, but this is a tough industry, right? For regardless of what side you're on, whether you're a brokerage, if you're a dispatcher, if you're, if you're a carrier or operator, it's a tough industry. And so my feeling is that, probably a $75,000 to $100,000 bond for new startup brokerages is probably adequate, right? Because they're not really moving a ton of freight typically. However, as brokerages grow, right, and they expand, they start hiring independent freight agents, and their carriers, they're racking up, potentially hundreds and hundreds, if not millions of dollars worth of carrier invoices, right? And so kind of like in the instance of Convoy, right, $2.6 million in claims. Is that $75,000 bond adequate? No, right? Should it be maybe on a sliding scale based on, your previous year's carrier invoices, right? That's kind of my opinion on it. I don't feel that, like, if you're a a multi-billion-dollar freight brokerage, right? That a $75,000 bond. I mean, they're probably doing that in 20 minutes, a half an hour, right? So, you know, it doesn't. I just don't feel like the bonding is something that is basically it should be on a sliding scale, in my opinion. Some might argue that, right? Obviously, but this is where I thought that I would get your input, whether you're a broker or a carrier, owner operator. I would really love your guys' feedback on this, because this is something that kind of comes up, and I started thinking about this, with the average of 60% of new freight brokerages that fail, inside of their first year, and then I forget what the percentage is the second year, but in the last few years, since the pandemic, the freight market's been, well, to put it lightly, in a slump, right? And we saw a lot of big brokers, small brokers, medium-sized brokers inevitably fail, right? And so how many of those carriers are left with invoices unpaid, right? Or ended up having to repay back their factoring company. So yeah, I would really value everybody's input on this. Or maybe you have another idea that I haven't considered. But yeah, this is kind of an interesting topic. And, this was in 2023. We're now going into 2025, and they're still dealing with this, right? So, and especially if you did multiple loads for that broker, right? It's not just one invoice, like, oh, that kind of hurts. But maybe you have 10, 15, invoices that you sent to Convoy, right? You know what I mean? That adds up, especially if you're, maybe a fleet of 5 trucks or 3 trucks or something. You know what I mean? It adds up quick, fast, and in a hurry. So, again, I would love to get everybody's feedback on this. As always, be kind to one another. Don't forget to check out the links in the description down below, like I mentioned. And have a great Thursday. Till next time, we'll talk to you later.